All right, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. My name is Carl with Keebo, and I'm being joined today by one of our customers, Brandon Harris from FCP Euro. We're going to go ahead and get this thing started. I realize that many of you will be watching as well on the recording. Welcome to you also. If you're watching us live and you do end up with a question that you'd like to ask one of us, there is a Q&A panel on the Zoom controls here. Feel free to type in a question. I'll be jumping over there to look at it from time to time to see if you've got a question that we can handle. We'll try to do that online as much as possible. So there's no need to wait for a specific Q&A period. If something, you got a question about something, feel free just to go ahead and type it in and we'll handle it as we can there on the Q&A chat window. All right. And again, thank you for joining us. A little bit about who we are here at Keebo. What we do is fully automated warehouse optimization and query acceleration. We're based on some research from top universities. Our co-founders are both coming from MIT and other institutions with lots of research into warehouse optimization and query acceleration. We are a Snowflake partner. We were at the Snowflake Summit just last month. We had a great time, met about 150 people at that were interested in what we have to do. For what we can do for them. Our goal is to save you money on Snowflake, expand your use of Snowflake without effort from your data team. And you can see some of the customers, at least a few of them that allow us to share their logo with you, including FCP Euro, which is one of them on there. And we're very pleased to have Brandon Harris with FCP Euro with us today, who's going to talk a bit about what their Snowflake environment has been like and why they brought in Keebo and some of the results that they've got there. But Brandon, it might be a good idea first to kind of tell us a bit about who FCP Euro is and what the value you guys are providing to the automobile industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Carl. Hey, everyone. As Carl mentioned, my name is Brandon Harris. I'm the Vice President of Technology and Data for FCP Euro. For those of you who may not be familiar with FCP Euro, we're an e-commerce company focused in the automotive aftermarket. So essentially what that means is car parts specifically for European make vehicles. So BMW, Volvo, Volkswagen, that kind of thing. The company itself is a little over 20 years old. It got started in the early 2000s. It spun off of a brick and mortar store, and our founder, Nick Bauer, was working in that brick and mortar store, decided to put some parts together in kits and put them up on eBay at the time, which was the best marketplace available. So he put those up there and got a lot of traction. And the company has evolved since then through constant investment in the company and through online sales channels. We now have a warehouse and headquarters in Milford, Connecticut. We have about 250 employees and revenue of just over $200 million annually. We have an extensive catalog focused on high quality parts sourced primarily from Europe. So over 200,000 parts. And we're going to be opening up another warehouse here soon in Mesa, Arizona to better support our West Coast customers. So I actually started with FCP Euro a little over a year ago. And was joined originally to help kind of transform the data stack. So if you go to the next slide here, Carl, we can talk a little bit about what we're doing at FCP Euro.
Question, if someone doesn't have a European car, can they still buy stuff from FCP Euro?
Yeah, it's a good question. You certainly can. We do have plenty of categories that are brand agnostic, car detailing, windshield wipers, that kind of fun stuff. Certainly take care of everybody. It's just the catalog is primarily geared toward European vehicles. So, yeah, at FCP Euro, we started off from a place of having some legacy infrastructure from Redshift to an older BI platform called Periscope from a company, Sisense. It was all kind of useful to a point, but there was a recognition from a leadership that we really wanted to invest in how we were managing our data and how we were going to use data moving forward for the company. And that's where I joined. And really the first kind of order of business was starting to consolidate all of our data onto Snowflake. So we spent some time figuring out how we were going to do that. And once we got our data landed, we thought very carefully about how we were going to roll out Snowflake to our end users. And one of the challenges when you do that is that if you've seen any sort of cloud deployment or Snowflake deployment, is that costs can really get out of hand very, very easily. It's one of those things where it's almost a all you can eat buffet, except it's not one single price, it kind of just goes up, and people don't pay attention to the bill at the end. They just kind of keep consuming. So that was one of our primary challenges, was that we were new to Snowflake and new to this cost model, and we didn't want to make a mistake. Coming in as a new leader, the last thing I wanted to do was go to my leadership, my CEO, and say, "Hey, we're going to spend this much on Snowflake," and then turn around and have spent that much in 3 months, not instead of a year like I had originally said. So this was something that I was concerned about, and I wanted to figure out how we could make strides in optimization and making sure everything was right sized. Another challenge we had at the moment was that our engineering team was relatively junior. A lot of these people are very, very smart, and they know the domain that we're in very well. But they may have started their career in the warehouse or in finance, and they just happen to be good with data and spreadsheets. So they're on the data team, and these are the folks that we're trying to upskill and teach a little bit about cloud deployments in Snowflake. And the engineering capacity is there for them to learn, but it's not at the level of let's throw them into managing a big Snowflake deployment right from day one. So we needed a partner. We needed some expertise and guidance as to how best to configure and maintain the Snowflake environment, right from the get-go. And finally, as we started to roll out Snowflake and get people on board, we wanted to make sure that they were making the correct choices. Not only did we ourselves and our engineering team need to know how to do this, but we needed to communicate that and make sure that we were almost training our end users for best practices and how they could go about using Snowflake to get the data they needed, but do it in an effective manner. And that is really where Keebo came in and has been a great partner for us. For us, Keebo is somebody who has an eye on our budget. It's a partner who can help us automatically right size our environment. It's just a helping hand. And if you think about what we look at when we had a couple options. The first was a solution like Keebo, and the other option was really we go hire the expertise that we need. And we're not at a scale, and many of you may be in this scenario, you're not really at a scale where you've got the financial or the economics making sense to support a full-time hire to focus just on Snowflake and supporting the Snowflake environment. But what you can do is invest in a tool and a partner like Keebo that really help do a lot of the same things and do them automatically rather than a full-time person. So for us, it was a great decision. It made a lot of sense economically for where we were, and it provided that capability for instant expertise and a lot of granular control over our environment without having to become Snowflake engineers and Snowflake experts. Next slide, if you would, Carl. So let's talk a little bit about what we see as far as this Keebo implementation and as far as how we use Keebo on a daily basis. The great thing about Keebo is that it's very close, not all, but all very close to a set it and forget it approach. So for our Snowflake environments, we have two accounts. We have an ETL account where we land all of our data, and then we have a separate BI account where all of our queries are happening and our users are interacting, and we actually replicate data between these environments. Keebo is running on both of them, and Keebo is optimizing both of those accounts independently with different strategies and different approaches, because in an ETL environment, you're going to see a lot more repeated patterns, a lot of consistency. And Keebo has done a great job of identifying those patterns and optimizing our spend. At the same time, you've got a bit more randomness when it comes to user interaction and BI tool interaction. And Keebo has again done a great job of identifying where those potential opportunities are to downsize our environment or to right size our environment while still maintaining a great experience for our end users. So two different perspectives and the same tool working really well across both of them. These are screenshots, actual screenshots from our dashboards and setups in Keebo. And you can see on the far right-hand corner, we've got our savings with Keebo, roughly 24% of our Snowflake bill. This was something that we set out early on in the conversations. We were saying, okay, if we could really optimize this environment and save 20% or focus on that 20% number, we'd consider that a win. And I'm happy to say that Keebo has helped us hit that both in our ETL environment as well as in our BI environment. So that's kind of real proof right now that we're getting a lot of value out of this. And it wasn't a huge investment from our part on trying to hire somebody that knew all this and could optimize our Snowflake environment internally. This was a tool we set up and let it run. And this is what kind of popped out the other end. What I want to highlight too in that middle row of the bottom picture is the cost saving strategy. So one of the great things that we've been able to do is determine when we have, in this case, our ETL environment, we have certain transformations happening or certain tools doing certain things. we're able to optimize at that warehouse level and say, hey, for this tool that's doing ETL and building our historical snapshot tables, we don't really care if it runs longer. We can have a lower cost strategy because that's the important focus here. On other ones like that, you'll see the Sigma warehouse down at the bottom. We're a Sigma customer, so we want to make sure that as our users are using this and interacting with the data in this environment through Sigma, that they've also got the ability to get good performance. It's not so much about saving cost and being acceptable to have a longer latency period. It's really about making sure they get the data they need very quickly. So we've got the ability to kind of granularly optimize our strategies for each of those warehouses, which in our case align to applications. So it makes it very natural and very easy on how we do that optimization. So I think that's kind of it. It's a very straightforward tool, very powerful tool. And like I said, it really replaced the need for us to go out to the market to hire this expertise in-house, yet still come away with a partner in this space who can help us use our Snowflake investment wisely.
Yeah, and I appreciate you sharing those slider bars that you see in that screenshot. We're going to take a look at those on a demo system here so I can explain to the audience here a bit more about how that works. But that's one of the key things about Keebo is that you can go warehouse to warehouse and determine what your goals are for each of those warehouses and make the adjustment to kind of give some boundaries or some advice to our own robots as they go and optimize your system for you. Well, thank you, Brandon. That's an incredible story. I really appreciate you sharing, especially what becoming a Snowflake customer and the challenge of figuring out how do we get our arms around this and what do we do to make sure that we operate this in the best way possible. So I'd like to spend a few minutes that we have remaining here in our time to actually show everybody a bit more about Keebo and what it looks like when you are a Keebo customer. So I'm going to go ahead and just jump right into a demonstration here. I've got another portal running. This is another customer of ours that gives us permission to show this particular page. For some of the other things, I'll switch over to a demo system. But this particular customer, I'm looking at year to date, and they're managing to get a little bit more than 42% savings this year so far out of Snowflake across all of their warehouses. And so here's how this works. How do we get these savings? Well, we do this by constantly optimizing Snowflake. We're making decisions. There are other tools out there that maybe some in the audience are considering that are what I would call an observe and report solution. They kind of look at how you're doing in Snowflake and they come back and give you reports and they say, wow, that warehouse over there is pretty expensive. Somebody ought to do something about that. Keebo is the product that actually goes and does something about it. As Brandon said, it's about as close to a set and forget as you can get in this. So what we do is we constantly are optimizing Snowflake warehouses. So we actually can show you those optimizations here in the optimization tab. I'm going to pick one of their busier warehouses here, and let's look at the last week. Here's the last week of optimizations for this Looker warehouse. Maybe let's take a look at the last month. So over the last month, we have done, in this one warehouse alone, we've done 950 real-time optimizations. So again, not just merely telling you that, hey, maybe you should adjust your auto suspend value, or maybe you should adjust the size of your warehouse right now. We're actually doing that as we see the opportunities to save money there. So that slider bar comes into effect here to determine how aggressive we're going to be in looking for those savings. More about that later. But you can see here the memory optimizations changing the auto suspend value that we've done over the last month. So the customer here can actually look at when these changes were made and what they were set to. And then you can see here for this particular warehouse, we've been adjusting it between a medium and a small pretty much constantly throughout the month. If this customer was an enterprise customer with Snowflake and they had multiple clusters, then in this blank area here, you would see the clustering adjustments that we do as well. So what Keebo is actually doing is making constant optimizations that we think will save you money throughout the day. And again, you don't need to hire somebody to do this. I mean, you could hire somebody and sit them down at the Snowflake controls and say, do the best you can to optimize it. But we think that this is where machine learning should come into play for you, because this is a task that we can easily have a machine do on your behalf 24/7, 365 without complaining. And then you can take your data resources, your data team, and set them on more important tasks like data pipelines, creating analytics for users, and making sure that everything is beneficial for the business team. And then we can handle the optimization to save money. And so does it work? Well, in the case of this customer, like I showed you, across all the warehouses, they're saving quite a bit. If we take a look, here's the saved credits chart. This is probably the most important one here that our customers will open up the dashboard and take a look at. This is by week here. This graph is by week. So if I look at the week of April 2nd, you can see here during that week, they actually used 652.2 credits with Snowflake. And then this light blue bar shows the additional they would have spent if we were not optimizing the system. So we saved them 278 credits. Those are credits they would have used if we had not been optimizing for them on their behalf, but we were, so we saved them about 30% that particular week. And then how we charge for the price for Keebo is based on this light blue bar, and it's a percentage of what we save. So we don't have like a flat fee, or we're not charging based on a percentage of your Snowflake spend, but rather our price is based on what we're going to be saving you. And of course, we're not sure what that's going to be until we try it out. So we actually don't sell Keebo without first having a free trial, because we need to gather some data to kind of see what it is we project that we'll be able to save you based on your past usage and based on the trial period and what our machine learning comes up with to do all of those optimizations. So we also keep an eye on things like query execution time and query latency. The actual, this teal colored line is the one we look at, because that's the average execution time. And so we want to make sure that that's holding steady and not going up. Although, as Brandon pointed out, there may be some warehouses where it doesn't matter if it's running a little bit slower, because you're more interested in saving money in that situation than you are fast response. But then, as you saw in Brandon's example, the Sigma warehouse in particular, they're more interested in making sure that the performance stays at least as good as it is now, and rather than on just trying to drive as much savings out of that. So here is how you do all of that. If I look at the settings here, I'm actually going to go to I'm not going to show you the customer settings, because there could be some things in there that we don't want to show here on the webinar, but this is my demo system. So these are all demo, this is the demo environment. So here's how we do this. So this is the security settings down here. By the way, we are SOC 2 Type 2 certified, so you can look at our certificate and see all the different controls we have in place for privacy and security. But basically, there's not a lot to report, because we don't access any user data. We only need access to metadata. In fact, there's 76 particular fields that we need access to. None of them are user data. It's all usage metadata. And you know exactly what they are, because you create a user for us called Keebo user. You give it access to a schema so that you know exactly what it is we're accessing. And that's the only thing we need to do. We do query that metadata, but we also, our algorithm makes sure that we use, for those queries, which are very small, by the way, they happen periodically, we try to find an unused or a little used warehouse to run those queries on, so we're not taking up a lot of your space or your compute time. But all of the processing we do for the machine learning is on our side. So we're not using your Snowflake credits to do any of these optimizations. So you give us a user and you give it the permissions that we need. So you're totally in control of that with the security. And then the other things that you can set, for example, on this test warehouse here, we mentioned this cost saving slider bar, and Brandon showed what his settings are. If you want our algorithms, if you want our machine learning algorithms, our robot dog, if you look at our website, if you want the robot dog to be really aggressive in finding you savings, then you can move this slider bar to the right. That could end up, there's a chance that that might end up slowing down some things in the warehouse, which is why we have those charts for you to track the latency and the query performance when this happens. If you're If you want the robot to be a little bit less aggressive in finding cost savings, then you can continue to move this toward the left. And then we prioritize the performance in those particular situations. So most of our customers will pick balance and just leave it. And then over time, they might try to move this to the right a little bit to see if they can get more savings out of it as time goes by. And then monitor the performance and then move it to the right again if they want to try to get more savings out of it. So those are the kind of the balancing act that you look at. There's really nothing to do except move those slider bars and to kind of track how it goes for you. There is an on and off switch here too. So if for some reason you need to turn off Keebo, it's as simple as hitting the switch and turning it off and then turning it back on again. Or if you know that there are going to be situations, maybe specific days and times where you don't want Keebo operating because there's something where you just want to make sure that that warehouse is running, without any sort of optimizations. You can put in a day and time here, and you can actually schedule when things might be running or not running with Keebo, or maybe a minimum size or minimum cluster count, things like that. So you can create rules based on what you need for any particular warehouse. So what I hope you see here is that, well, first of all, there's not a lot that you need to do with Keebo. You need to give it permission to use the metadata that we need. And then you need to kind of just keep an eye on it during the trial period. And then you can come in here and make these adjustments as you need to. But that's pretty much it. There's really not a whole lot else to show you. Once you get going, then you keep coming back to this overview tab to kind of see how things are going over time. And this again is my demo system, so it's a little bit different numbers here. But if we go back to the customer view, so you come back here and look at this from time to time, and then you can even go to this projections tab and use it to figure out, to kind of say, hey, I want to figure out what we might be spending, what we might be saving over the next year, so that if I'm coming up on Snowflake renewal or something like that, you have some data that you can use for that particular conversation as well. So we're approaching the bottom of the hour here, and I thank you so much for joining us. I don't see any questions right now in the Q&A chat, so let me just leave you with one thing that you can go look at next. So if you'd like to do a little bit more exploration of Keebo on your own and can maybe look at doing a trial with us, what I would recommend you do is go to our website, and then under the resources tab, we have an evaluation guide. And what's under here is a lot of good information. So if you want to see these demos and actually a little bit more in depth, I've got a couple of demo videos on here. One of them is how the portal works. The other is about all the settings and administrative things that you do with Keebo. And then if you want to see those security documents, if you'd like to see exactly what we require from a security standpoint, we have it all listed out here, including the specific fields that we have, how we encrypt some of the fields that need to be encrypted. All of that is listed here. We have some pricing information and then a free trial. You can always go to our website and click request demo as well and schedule a time with us for us to go over this with you, maybe specific to your particular usage of Snowflake. So with that, I will bring it to a close. Thank you to Brandon Harris and FCP Euro. I've told Brandon this before, but I'm about to buy a used BMW. And so I'm pretty sure I'm going to need parts at some point. And I'm going to go there, watch the DIY videos, and get ready to take care of that automobile. And for those of you with Snowflake, we'd love to help you take care of that and keep it running in top shape as well, and get you the most efficiency and the most savings out of this. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. We hope to talk to you soon.